Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here to review Krull. This is to have been my very first time watching this film, and after watching it, I was so visually blown away by it. And I thought that this movie was a soft, great film. Oh my god. What hidden gem that this movie is that I don't think enough people know about and should, because god dang is this good. It is a soft, great film, and I was to deliciously enjoy this and just be like, man, yeah, like the down part of this film is really just because they milk certain things for a little bit too long. Like when Caldwin is going on and climbing on to the mountain, I was like, okay, we're going a little bit long on this one. But we are people that, if you've gone on to play stuff like Elder Scrolls Skyrim, playing that game, you really have to go on. You really have to be patient, because a lot of it is just traveling all over the place and going on to get to these certain things, to get to this unique piece that eventually will be a big help for you at some point in the game somewhere. And so, Krull, if you've gone on to play Elder Scrolls Skyrim, yeah, like it feels very similar. Or if you've ever gone on and watched just kind of like Lord of the Rings or just kind of sword and sorcery like stuff, then like this should probably eventually be like, I would hope, people's just kind of like hidden gem of a piece that they found and really just locked on to it of it. So what is Krull about? We come to find that in the beginning of this film that there is a strange ship-like thing that lands onto planet Krull called the Black Fortress that turns into this castle. And even the castle, it feels like it has like a life on its own. It's so strange. Like, the fortress seems to have like hands and eyes, and like when Lissa is kind of making its way through the fortress, like the fortress is moving and uh and closing things from behind her, and it just makes for quite a more interesting just visual approach here. But anyways, so the Black Fortress is to have a entity called the Beast that seems to be this uberly powerful entity that eventually unleashes out all of these slayers out to wreak havoc upon the planet and try to destroy it. We come to find that Lissa is to tell her father, who is king, because within this planet there is this kind of medieval times kind of theme going on here. So Lissa goes on and tells her father that she feels that it's best if she goes on to marry Caldwin, so that way the two of their kingdoms can unite to face off against this threat together, and hopes that that will be the thing to definitively take out these slayers. But we'll come to find that it may be a little bit more than that. So as Lissa and Caldwin unite to do this wedding, and then there is this fire element thing going on there, which eventually will play into the third act of the film, which I really liked. So there is this wedding that goes on that ends up getting stopped by slayers coming in, and they rip away Lissa from Caldwin. Kings end up getting killed, and we come to find out that Caldwin is to be the only one in this castle left alive. Caldwin meets up with Ynir. I believe that's how his name is pronounced. That's what it seemed to have been pronounced in the film. and my hearing of it. So the two of these people go on realizing that they need to find specialty weapons, needing to go on and find a army that they can collect together of these misfit robber, whoever bottom the barrel that they could really just find, and go on to inevitably figure out where this dark fortress is to be, because it seems that the dark fortress keeps swapping from place to place upon this planet, to where they have to definitively figure out where it is to be at a certain time or day, so that way they can get to the dark fortress, or the black fortress, to then face off against the beast, because they have to take this thing on. In their journeys, they also go on and find weapon here that is clave or glaive. And the really like just irksome thing about having this weapon within this film is the limited use of it. It's a really cool weapon, but yet it has to be used for a special time in the movie. And then after that, we also come to find, anyways, once Lissa and Caldwin get together, they also have another separate weapon that is to really do the beast in. Uh, but yeah, but still. So, uh, but if anything, still the bigger problem in the movie is just how things are just kind of to be slowed down at points. Where Caldwin is going on and climbing the Granite Mountain is taking a long time. There's obviously certain points where, like, the wedding is taking a long time. Like, there's a lot of things that are just kind of stretching this movie out to 2 hours. But also, this movie is so visual eye candy that I couldn't help but say that it is still a soft great film. But anyways, back to the film. So we have Caldwin that goes on, again, getting these misfits together. We even have a character that is Rel, that is to be this Cyclops, which is to be this kind of behemoth of a character that is to be like the standout. Like, he goes on and he takes out so many of these Slayers so well. I'm like, why aren't there more Cyclopses in this film? Because, man, it seems that these Cyclopses really do go on and really take out these Slayers really well. And I was hoping for, like, Rel to, like, bring out a lot more Cyclopses, just for there to be a bigger battle going on somewhere. And for Caldwin just to have just 9 people with him, or 9 roughly people with him within this journey, I'm like, man, I wish he could have gotten a little bit more, for how eventually things are to kind of play out the way they do in this movie, where people keep dying left and right. Because, yeah, they write off this movie like they're only going to make one of these. So they blow all of their characters and kill them off. In which I can go on and definitely just enjoy the way everything just goes on, to make me, by the end of this, assume that everyone is going to die in this piece and I can enjoy it. So, with that said, we come to find that in the wedding, there is this fire element that they put in the water and then they take out of it. And by the end of the piece, we have our characters that go on and use this fire power coming out of their hand. And that is to be the definitive second weapon past the glaive. or yeah, the glaive. And also we have a character that is to uh, be Ergo the Magnificent, and he goes on to consistently change into animals, which is really cool. Like at first, I thought that Ergo was maybe like a fairy for how he like appears at first, like as if it's a weird, goofy like rocket that he just falls in this water, and then all of a sudden he just appears to people. Which I'm like, okay, what happened there? Um, but no, it just seems that this guy is to be a magician, and I'm like, okay, so what was that whole like? How is it that he just arrived the way he did? I was kind of confused a little bit about that. Um, but I liked how Ergo was to be this kind of this person who was to be a lot more cautious than the rest of the group, and I liked how they were to also go on and get to the whole like we have to have somebody specifically that needs to figure out where these black fortresses are going to be moving from. The same one black fortress is to be moving consistently from within this planet. And so we need the seer. Then when that doesn't pan out, because of course, like if you have one person that you're riding on to find out where this black fortress is going to be within the planet, then you need to go on and you need to come to find a secondary person that is as powerful on this planet that can figure out where the Black Fortress is going to be because the first plan failed. I would have thought that maybe Turst or whatever the little kid could have gone on and just been able to have figured it out. But I guess he's just too young. So we have Ynir. I believe that's how it's pronounced. That's how it felt like it sounded when he said it in the movie. Ynir goes on and he makes his way to the Widow of Webs. And I'm like, yeah, we always have to have a big, huge, massive spider in a film. And this movie doesn't disappoint. We have this crystal spider that is kind of off in the distance. And so Ynir has to go on and speak with the uh, the Widow of Webs, and he knows what her true name is because he has loved her and because he has had child with her. And we come to find out what had happened to said child within the film. And with the two of them kind of completely spending all of their power to just get this information of where this dark fortress is going to be, and Ynir brings back this information to Kaldwin, and then Kaldwin has to go on with the rest of his people to be like, okay, now we need to figure out a way to get to this dark fortress, or I want to say dark fortress, black fortress, because to me, in my mind, dark fortress sounds better, but it's called black fortress. So we come to find that there is these strange horses that there are horses that go so fast that the bottom of their feet bursts into flame, but it doesn't hurt the horses. It's just their special ability of these mares, these flame mares, or these mares. So I know there's an actual name of it that they actually have to have it for it, which is to be a thing that I can't quite find. Anyways, so fire mares. I was kind of right in there. So for this film, I would definitely recommend people checking it out. I would say for people to go on and find this on Tubi if it's not available on there for some odd reason, because eventually maybe I came out on the wrong day. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll give you a bootleg option for you to watch this for absolutely free somewhere else. But if anything, I would definitely tell people, if you've never seen this before, you need to check this out. Oh my god, was this good. Uh, yeah, like, when they go on by the later half of the film, and there's this room where all of these, like, spiked wood pieces start coming in on the guys, and they're getting, like, stabbed, and they're like trying to just stay alive within it, like, because all these like robber guys, they start to split up from Caldwin, and they go into this room, and all of a sudden just these pieces are just kind of like just stabbing into them, and like, oh. I was like, man, this movie has to go on, and really, like, it is really trying, and I really appreciate every bit of what it tries to do. I can understand why they stretch things out so, because of the money of which they spend in certain areas and certain pieces and certain things, where they really had to get um, as much as they could out of every extravagant set piece that they paid for, and I can completely understand. Um, Man, this movie is good. Check it out. Definitely do it. But anyways, I think it's about that time to say that it is spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about that having spoil this movie. Let me know in the comments below what would be your favorite sword and sorcery film, and if it's to go on and of course be Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I understand that. If it's anything else, then let me know that in the comments below, because I know a lot of people probably like Lord of the Rings. Believe me, I know it. I can understand. Um, there was at points where I did go on and I did review stuff like Conan the Barbarian. The Beastmaster is seemingly a thing that keeps be doing well on the channel. I'm forever grateful for that. There were other projects that I always was kind of itching to maybe do, like Red Sonja and other kind of things of which that are to be very similar. Because I really like medieval times and sorcery, sword and sorcery kind of projects. And so I always wanted to just try to figure out a way for a movie to be popular of that genre, and I'm hoping that this may be it. But either way, I had fun watching this, and I hope you do too. So, with that said, I'm going to get to the portion here where I go on and I talk about future reviews. I talk about feasibly the next thing of which I do in this review, which is to go over this movie scene for scene, blow for blow, in way more in detail of which that I did than when I did talk about this here with an early part of video. I don't know. I kind of painted myself into a corner there of what to say. So, future reviews. I think I've gone on to say that I'm basically reviewing everything at this point. But anything new, I don't think I have anything that has popped in there that I feel that I'm going to jot down here. If anything, I'm still interested in eventually covering the Harrison Ford movie, The Fugitive. I'm going on and hopefully maybe covering a lot more Rambo films, because good God, that part 2 is doing really well. I don't know why. Maybe if I do the third one, it'll do just as well, or maybe it won't do a thing. But at least I'll go on and I'll definitely check it out. Because of how much that part 2 is just doing really good numbers, surprisingly. There is still things of the action genre that I'm itching to do, like 48 Hours, and there is a lot of projects that I feel like I am weirdly tempted, and I know that it'll be like a waste of time. I'm honestly tempted into covering Mad Max, the early Mel Gibson movies. And I know that's probably going to be a waste of time, but maybe Thunderdome could be something that would be worth it to at least get to that. But I like Road Warriors and Beyond Thunderdome. Maybe we'll have some people be interested in the first Mad Max movie. But yeah, but I'm just kind of throwing a lot out there. I'm seeing what sticks. I'm having a lot of fun with. Yeah, there's sometimes where it doesn't feel that way, um, but like I'm so happy that I can just kind of really think tank how to get these um, thumbnails to look like the movies and to be able to uh, get this all blurted out within my brain noggin. Like it's a lot of fun. So I'm happy. I'm so happy right now. Uh, and we'll see if the next review keeps me in that pattern of being in good positive um, thought patterns. I don't care how late certain new reviews or new releases are not to be new releases anymore. There's still stuff that I'm still thinking about covering. Um, there is still stuff that I'm still contemplating as a show to go into, as well as also there's stuff that I'm still wanting to finish up. Like Resident Evil movies are still going to be a thing that I hope that I will finish, because I know that there is a new one eventually coming at some point that I probably should go on and review that also. Even though it'll have no connection with the rest of the Resident Evil things, still. Um, Plus, also, I definitely know that the next Resident Evil movie I'm going to review, I've seen a lot of bits and pieces of it, and I know it's going to be really fun. So, with that, if anything, comment down below a really cool, interesting film, regardless of how old it is, regardless of how uh, new it is, regardless of whatever it is. Because at some point I may go on and I may review and check it out, or even a show. As long as it's probably something that I probably haven't done in the past, because more than likely there's probably a reason why I'm not going on and doing it. Um, I'm honestly going on and being tempted to check out the first season because I did the second season, weirdly just on this channel, of a anime called Gantz. Because oddly, it is doing some kind of something right now. It probably may not go on and be doing that on the things that I've reviewed of it, but for some reason it's a thing. So I'm kind of tempted to check out Gantz right now. Other than that, let's get into spoilers, everybody. So let's we make our way into the beginning of this film. The beginning of it is to show that again, the Black Fortress is to look very much like a ship, or it almost kind of looks more like a comet that's going to crash land on the Krull planet. We would go on and have uh, Ynir that goes into this kind of early monologue explaining about how this Black Fortress is crash landed on the planet Krull and how it is to leash out onto the world slayers. Because, yeah, like, you would definitively think that, yeah, like, how am I supposed to understand this world? But I think they do try to do a good enough job trying to explain this brand new world that you've never heard of. But again, some people may go on and get quite easily confused. So, here's where we go on and we have Lissa, who's talking to her king father, Irig or Irig. I'm not quite sure the pronunciation because for the life of me, I didn't hear it somewhere in the film. So you can correct me in the comments below. I'm going to go with Irig because to me, that just sounds like a good pronunciation. So maybe it's Irig. We'll go with Irig. So this is talking Irig, and Irig, or the king, is saying to Lissa, "Hey, you don't need to marry Colwyn. if anything, me and Caldwin's father, who is also a king, we could just sign a treaty, and this is King uh, Turoid. Turoid? Yeah, that just flies off the tongue. So the King Eirig is saying that he'll sign a treaty with King Turoid, and they don't have to have a wedding. And Lissa's like, no, it's actually my choice to get married, and I'm fine with it. And so Eirig is like, oh, okay, at least as long as you're happy. So they're going on and saying like, okay, like, so when should Colwyn be here? Because I think he should be expected by now. So Colwyn and King Turig or Turoid uh make their way, and it seems as they made it to this kingdom, there is kind of this bickering of back and forth because they're to mention about how like they had lost 300 people getting to this kingdom, and 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 King Ira gets to mention it's like, well, hey, I lost a good number of people uh, because I called for your help and no one came. So there's a bickering back and forth here, and Caldwin is making his way through the castle to figure out where Lissa is. So as the two of them meet up, they start talking about where the ceremony is going to be held. They also are to bring back up how Lissa and her father, the king, was talking about how good fighters make bad husbands, and they bring that back up here. And so Lissa goes on and asks, Colwyn if she is to go on and ask him if, or if she asks him to jump, would he? And so Colwyn says no, and it's like, well, of course you wouldn't, because you're a warrior. The two of them kiss. So Colwyn and his king father go on to make their way down the stairwell, and the wedding is going to commence here. So they mention about how now that Lissa is meeting with Colwyn and the two kings are together, that these kingdoms are now to be no longer separate, that they're to be one singular kingdom under their children. So, while that's going on and being said, and that's good and great and all, we have the Slayers that are going on and making their way through the woods, getting to the castle, while Ynir is off in the distance, kind of looking on as the Slayers are making their way through the woods. So, Caldwyn and Lissa are to make their way into the ceremony, and Caldwyn goes on into uh, this seemingly cauldron of water, and he goes on and he puts his torch fire, he puts it into the water, and says that he gives fire to water, and then Lissa goes on and takes the fire from the water and is to hold within her hand the flame. And I was like, wow, that actually is a really cool idea. like to just have this be like, oh yeah, this is definitely fantasy, and eventually you're going to see a lot more than that. So so they talk about choosing husband and wife, and and they finally have the slayers that break into the castle. So Caldwin grabs Lissa, and Lissa's saying it's like, well, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to fight alongside you. And Caldwin's like, no, we're going to figure out a way for you to get out of here because I want you to be safe. It's not a gender thing. It's just that Caldwin wants to make sure that Linda is going to survive this because he cares about her. So Caldwin is hoping to peel Lissa away with these guards that will protect her, as Caldwin is to try to go on and fight for this castle because it's now one singular kingdom instead of two separate ones. So, within the fighting here, the Slayers are going on and they're making their way through this castle, and they're making it look pretty easy because it seems that they have this like weird blasts of weapons, and it just seems that or blaster like weapons, and the knights are to just kind of have these swords that kind of have this kind of red glow to them, so kind of outmatched here. So inevitably we have this fight go on, and so we start to see Caldwin, who is trying to fight off all these slayers, and sometimes he gets overpowered, and sometimes he figures out a way to fight very well and just kind of stay alive here. But yeah, but a lot of people are getting killed in the process. We see a good number of people that are all just getting mowed down here. So we come to see that Caldwin goes on and kills one of the Slayers, and we obviously see that the Slayer goes on, and when it gets killed, it dies such an unusual manner, like there's some guts or something just spilling out of the body, like as if there was some kind of thing trying to leap out of it. It's so weird. And I was like, what is that? Like, it just feels like there is some separate entity that was trying to get out, that was trying to flee for its life, and it died right then and there. So I was like, what is going on with that whole Slayer thing? Like, why is it that like their body just kind of like just dispenses that kind of excess of thing in just an estranged way? But it was entertaining. It was a creative death. So Caldwin finds his father, King Toroid, and so the two of them fight together. We have at a point where Caldwin takes his cape and drapes it over one of the Slayers for his father to take the slicing blow. And then we cut to Lissa. Lissa's going on with these guards, and inevitably she is to be met with Slayers. While that's going on, Lissa's father, King Irig, is being killed by a Slayer uh, shortly thereafter, the Lissa scene here. So a Slayer is going on and choking King Irig and killing him. And so as the knights that are to be with Lissa are trying to face off against these Slayers, one of the knights goes on and gets a laser to the back and then falls over and dies. And so we cut back to Caldwin facing off against these Slayers, and he's jumping on the cauldron that has the water that they were doing the whole water and fire ceremony on. And then he goes on and jumps from another place to cut down what I would call a chandelier, but it's this big, huge, massive wood piece that has a lot of kind of flamed torches on it. So yeah, like I guess that could be like a chandelier, but it's kind of a strange looking chandelier for how shaped it is, because it's a very long stretched out wood piece. But anyways, so we see that Lissa is to be grabbed by Slayers, forced into a horse to then, it seems, to have them just kind of wait there. Lissa is shouting out for Caldwin. Caldwin is shouting out for Lissa. As Caldwin finds out that Lissa is in jeopardy, he races after her. And while that's going on, Caldwin and his father are both trying to get to Lissa, and Caldwin's father gets blasted by a laser and gets killed, and then Caldwin's father falls over and dies. So, shortly thereafter that, we then have Caldwin, who ends up getting he ends up getting also blasted in the arm. He flips and goes down, and he's left for dead, we have to assume. But that's not exactly the case. He's not dead. Of course, he's the hero of the story. So, Lissa's to be taken away to make her way to the Black Fortress. She's going on, and we see this like huge like horde of all these Slayers, and they're getting to the Dark Fortress, and I'm like, by so early in this film, I was maybe like 10 minutes in, and I'm like, I am freaking sold on this piece. I'm like, oh my god, this movie is so visually entertaining, and I'm just like, man, what a piece of film. Like, I was won over by this film so early. I was so concerned about how the rest of the movie was going to be for how so won over I was. So, we then have Ynir. I hope that's somehow pronounced right. So, Ynir goes on to make his way through the castle of dead bodies, or probably 90+% 90 dead bodies. So, Ynir is to have found King Turoid. God, I'm so thinking that I'm saying that wrong. King Turoid. Yeah, I think I got it right. So, Ynir goes on and finds King Turoid's body, takes his necklace from him, and gives said necklace to then Caldwin, because he's now the new king. So, Ynir goes on and takes this kind of a strange looking clay healing piece that he smudges on this bandage and puts it onto Caldwin's chest, and shortly thereafter that, conveniently, Caldwin is to wake up to be yelling Alyssa. Ynir goes on to tell Caldwin that she's alive, and now, of course, Caldwin is asking, well, where is she? And who, of course, is this guy who's talking to him now? He introduces himself as Ynir, the Old One, and Caldwin is to know of him. So, Caldwin is to know or be familiar that Ynir would normally have isolated himself in the Granite Mountains, and Ynir is like, "Well, yeah, but I'm needed here now, so that's why I've appeared." So Coswin is to go on and also remember that his father had died as he goes on and looks at his father's necklace. And Ynir says that there's no time for this guy to grieve, that there's other more important things going on here. And Ynir goes on and says, like, well, hey, I was looking for a king, I was looking for a man, and instead I found a boy. Really just going on and telling him, like, hey, like it's you need to quickly grow up, because if anything, the more time you take growing up, your planet is getting destroyed. So yeah, we just don't have time for the pleasantries of grieving. So so Coswin or Caldwin again asks for where Lissa is, and Ynir states that she is held within the Dark Fortress. And so Caldwin is to say, like, well, can you lead me to it? And and leading him to it, like, there is a yes about it, but then also he has to find a person that could figure out where the Black Fortress is. So Caldwin gets up, and Ynir says to Caldwin, it's like, well, hey, since you're a king now, well, you're probably going to need help. You're probably going to need a weapon. You're probably going to need a number of other things to face off against the Slayers. And Caldwin is like, I'll go on and I'll find help along the way. Like, uh, and, uh, and so, and so Ynir is like, well, yeah, but we're going to need a lot more than just men and swords. We're going to need the glaive, or the glaive. So here's where they go on and they make their way to the Granite Mountains. So, as they make their way to the Granite Mountains, we would go on to have Ynir tell Caldwin that he needs to make his way into the Granite Mountains to be at the peak to seek out the glaive, and he can't go with him because if Caldwin doesn't make it back with the glaive, then he won't make it back at all. And so, really, it's just to say that, like, yeah, if this guy dies, if he's not going to be worthy to get the glaive, then yeah, like, all is lost. So, what do you think is going to happen here? Yeah, of course he's going to get the glaive. So, hence picture and photo of in the thumbnail guy with glaive. So, now we have Caldwin and he's climbing for a very long time in this film. And there is at a point where Caldwin is climbing this mountain and rocks are crumbling and falling near him, and he's trying to dodge all this. So Caldwin eventually gets to the peak of mountain and finds this doorway of hole, and he goes into what looks almost lava like this is almost like a volcano that he's made his way into. And I thought it was so strange how Caldwin is to put his hand in what looks like lava to me. And I'm like, shouldn't this have destroyed his hand? Like, but I guess also you can write this off as like, this is planet Krull, so maybe like these people are a little bit more durable. Maybe this isn't exactly lava. Like, I don't know, maybe also because considering of how magical these entities may be, any number of things could just kind of be um a little bit uh like if he's the one that is worthy, then the lava won't hurt him. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I was a little bit confused here. So, because you could see that like the smoke and the like, you can tell that the environment that he's in is hot. So Coldwind is to roll up his sleeve and put his hand into this red substance and pull out this uh, blackened ninja star that eventually ends up looking like this, which is to be the glaive. As eventually it goes from blackened to then it starts to chunk away the black pieces and reveals the more shinier, more uh, bejeweled glaive that we see here right here. Like we basically get the screenshot of this. So, and man, I was like, all right, like cool looking weapons. Like, what else are we gonna do next? And then right after that, like, so we find that the Black Fortress, because I keep getting it confused with Dark Fortress. So the Black Fortress, I would say it feels like its own living thing. And we can obviously see that now for how when Lissa is talking to the beast, she's talking to him while she's also standing what looks like a window, but the window is to be an eyeball. So I'm like, man, the visuals of this movie is just breaking my mind. So Lissa is speaking to the beast, and so the beast is going on and mentioning about how she will not end up with Caldwin, that if anything, she should end up with a king like the beast, and that is to be his ultimate plan. By the end of this, or by the later half of this, we see that the beast is picking out for Lissa this gold gown and this gold crown, and basically saying that it's set for the two of them to get married. Plus, also, the beast is to be somewhat of a changeling to where he can go on and just kind of become other people. And the beast then goes on to appear as Caldwin and tells Lissa, it's like, well, hey, I can become anyone that you want. So if you really do love Caldwin, then I can become him and you can then marry me then. And Lissa's like, no, it's not the same. So as Caldwin returns to Ynir with the glaive, Ynir tells Caldwin that the glaive is going to be used for very specific times. That he's not going to just willy nilly bust this thing out to assist him at any moment of time. No. This movie has to go on and just not have this cool, really interesting weapon be used so often. What a mistake. Anyways, so here's where Ynir tells Caldwin that the Black Fortress is to be moving way too frequently, that it's tough for them to track it down. And it never stays at the same place twice, is what Ynir says. So Caldwin is just so focused on trying to get to the Black Fortress because he's still thinking of Alyssa being with these horrible people and what are they doing to her. So Ynir is telling Caldwin, it's like, well, yeah, I can definitely understand. I was in love once. I was young, and so we'll come to find that Ynir within the story does go on and meet up with the woman of which that he had loved, but eventually that story didn't work out for him, and we'll find out why. Um, so we cut to the two of them making their way and traveling, and here's where they meet with Yurgo. So Yurgo crashes into this water like a firework, or like the flying of a fairy going into this water. He appears out of the water and is like, "Well, hey, like, thanks for not helping me. I almost drowned." And so the guys didn't know what to expect. And so once they see a guy coming out of the water, they're very confused. So Yurik goes on to explain who he is, that he's Yurik the Magnificent, and talks about how he had gone on to talk about a goosel berry pie that I think he stole from somebody, and how it didn't make sense the guy that he stole the pie from had any problem with it, and calls when it's like, well, I'm sure the guy that had the pie originally wanted the pie. So Urig or Ergo and Coswig or Caldwin Caldwin. So the two of them, it seems like, aren't really sitting well together, and Urig is going on and immediately telling Caldwin, he's like, well, hey, uh I'll turn you into Goose. So Ynir tells Caldwin, it's like, yeah, don't see this guy as any of a threat. Like, if anything, um, yeah, just have no never mind about him. So as Yurik goes on and uses a spell, all of a sudden it turns himself into a goose. And Caldwin is like, well, yeah, I guess you're a goose, fat and ugly. Like, you were trying to put a spell on me, but it backfired. So Yurgo looks back on his notes and then slowly but surely turns himself back into a human. So so Colwyn and Ynir are to say to Ergo, it's like, well, hey, how about you travel with us? Travel with numbers, you'll be safe. And Ergo is like, no, I don't want to travel with you people. No. So Yurgo goes on and starts wandering in the forest, and he immediately goes on to meet up with Rel, the Cyclops. As soon as Yurik sees this Cyclops, he freaks out, and he immediately finds Caldwin and Ynir, who are on these horses. He jumps on their horse, and he's like, yeah, I think it'd be better if I go on and I go with you people, because otherwise he's going to be met with the Cyclops. So now at the Black Fortress, that is to be now in a snowy environment. So the Beast tells Lissa that he is in no fear of Lissa escaping from this fortress. So he's willing to let Lissa make her way through this entire fortress if she wants to, because he doesn't see her as a threat. So all of a sudden, the fortress starts to adjust to let Alyssa start to make her way. Like it seems like they create a bridge for her to be able to now be able to kind of move around through the fortress. So now we cut to Caldwin, Fergo, and Ynir, and they're making their way through this more kind of rocky, kind of a number of boulder like environments. And here's where they go on, and here's where they meet with the robbers, the guise of which that'll be characters like Liam Neeson's character, and we'll have a good cluster of people that you may have remembered from stuff like Harry Potter. The guy that played Hagrid is also in this film. He plays one of the kind of the robber guys. So also, this movie very much reminds me of like Clash of Titans. For those of you that have gone on and probably seen that film and those films, and I'm sure because I'll probably tag those movies within here. But yeah, I didn't think of that at first. I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably say that this has a matching of Clash of Titans because it feels very much like that. Even to the point where by the end of the film there's like a release the Kraken kind of thing, and there also is Liam Neeson in this movie. So yeah, like there's so much things that are to kind of be matching up with Clash of Titans from the either remake or stuff that's to be similar to the original. So as it seems that Caldwin and Ergo is to know that right around this area they're probably to be met by robbers, and so at some point as they make it further into these rocks they are to be met by people that start to go on and start trying to attack them. Ergo goes on and meets with Kegger, and also meets with uh, Turquill, or Kegan and Turquill is to be the names here. Kegan is to be Liam Neeson's character. So Turquill, I'm never gonna remember that name. The two of them go on, and they hope to take their axes, and they hope that they can go on, and they can hit Ergo with them. But Ergo ends up going on and turning into a pig, and he completely gets the axes missed by him. So now all of a sudden Caldwin is being met by one of the robbers who is on horseback, and now we're going on to have all the other robbers appear out of everywhere, and so Turquill goes on and says that, or one of the robbers say that they have 100 men with them. And as Caldwin looks around, it's like, well, you're about 90 men short. So I'm not really buying that you have 100 men here. So Caldwin goes on to realize that these guys are escaped prisoners. And Turquill mentions about how they're slaves, bandits, fighters, and brawlers. And so Coswell, it's like, well, hey, how about you go on and how about you work for a king? And Turquil is like, I've had a lot of people who have claimed to be kings coming through here. And yeah, like, I'm not going to trust that you're just some king. Eventually, Turquil does go on and find that Caldwin does have these, or does have this key to unlock some of the prisoners from their shackles. And then Turquil is like, wait a minute. Like, if you have this key that only so few people have, then that would have to make you Calswin, or Calwin, because this certain king was to have a son that was of a certain age, and it's probably you. And Calvin is like, yeah, I am that guy. I am the king now. So, but Calvin is to say to Turquil that if he goes on and if he fights with him, that they'll get freedom and they'll get fame. And Turco goes on and says, like, well, yeah, I can't exactly go on and pay for anything with either one of those. Like, I can't get anything out of either freedom or fame um, that'll be worth it to me. So, like, being able to eat, or he'd go broke. So yeah, so at some point we do have one of the robbers that does decide out of the whole entire group that he will join Caldwin, who is Oswin. So he joins, and then uh, everybody else at some point does join along with them. So, and even Turquoise is like, man, like, my brain must be softening by wanting to join this whole thing. So, we go on and we have the group, and we have Rel that keeps showing up in the background, the Cyclops that keeps showing up in the background. So we now have all the group all together on horseback, and they meet up with Slayers. And Ergo is to be met by Slayers, and we have uh, Rel that goes on and takes this spear and slays down the Slayers. The rest of the guys on horseback rejoined where Ergo was, and Ergo is to be mentioning about how he saw this terrible monster, and Ynir says that it was a Cyclops. Ynir explains about how the Slayers and Cyclopses seemingly have this weird history between one another that is spanned, and so that, I guess, is why a Cyclops is so good at killing Slayers, because they've known about them for such a longevous amount of time. So, so everybody gets back on. Let me pause here for a second. I'm gonna try to figure out how to exactly say this part. All right, so we have certain parts of the group start to separate, as we have 4 people that decide that they're going to go on to make their way to the seer. Also, the one thing that I forgot to mention about the Cyclops is that the Cyclops was to have made a bargain with the Slayers, and the Cyclopses were to have given up one of their eyes because now they only have one. They used to have two, hence Cyclops. But the Cyclops could go on and supposedly have the power to see the future. But it seems that the only future that they were able to see is how they died. And so the Cyclops would go on and know exactly when they are going to die. And so at some point in the movie, Rel, who is to be the Cyclops, is to state, yeah, my time is up. And so we go on and we're like, oh, okay, so he's going to die. Okay, like, so how is he going to die? And then he separates from the group, and then they just write off. And then all of a sudden, we then see Rel, who goes on to get on his horse, rides off to meet everybody, then goes to try to stop this door from closing in on the rest of the group, and he gets completely smushed, and that's how he dies. So, why is Rel to have gone on and paused from the rest of the group and say he's going to die then, but then it makes no sense. It sounds like the Cyclops doesn't know how he was going to die. So I just don't understand what was going on there. What was the thought process with these people going on and putting this movie together? That scene clearly does not make sense. Anyways, so Ynir, with 3 other people, go on to see the seer, and the guys are thinking Ynir weird because he is walking ever so close to a thing of rock, and like, yeah, I don't think that there's gonna be a doorway there. Like, like he's going on telling us he's gonna go on and see the seer through a thing of rock. Like, I don't get what that is. So Ynir goes on to make his way to the rock, and then the seer goes on to know that Ynir is there, opens a doorway that comes off as this just green light that has Ynir go portal-wise through this hole, as the seer is to know that this is an old friend of his. So shortly thereafter that, the rest of the group that is to be with him is to kind of follow suit. So when they go and they see the seer, there's an interesting part where Krull goes on to find these emeralds, and he breaks a piece of it off, and he's like, oh man, I'm gonna make a huge killing here. And then when he goes on and he shows the rest of the guys, the robbers, later, it's like, hey man, I just made a killing. And they're like, what are you talking about? So he goes on and he opens up this bag, and all it has is rocks in it. And the guys are like, well, yeah, I guess you got played. And Krull's like, oh my god, like, these were emeralds. And they're like, nope, looks like rocks to me. So that is so interesting. So within that seer layer, the emeralds are to only be emeralds there, but when you go outside of it, the emeralds don't really exist, which is kind of interesting. So, getting back to the film here. So, Ynir and his people are asking to seek out the Black Fortress. So, they would go on to eventually find a visual of it, and at some point the beast is to find out that they're tracking them, and so he puts a hand of this visual and destroys it, forcing the seer to then be like, well, I guess we can't just go on and do it this way. I have to go on and I have to guide you to where this dark fortress is. We also have Yurgo or Ergo that is speaking to this kid, asking him if he has any candy because he's a kid. He should have candy, and he's like, "Well, I do have these cinnamon bars." So they eat a bit of that. So we find out this kid name is Titch, and so the two of them are kind of they're kind of nice to one another, and so shortly thereafter, the vision is to be broken, and there's like a gust of wind. So the seer is almost not sure if he wants to partake in helping out this group, but Caldwin is convincing him that their need is great for them finding where the Black Fortress is. Because the seer is saying that it's probably beyond his power, but Caldwin is just adamantly just like, well, we need to find where this thing is. Like, it's important for us to find this fortress so that we can find Lissa, but also to face off against this beast. So we now see everybody getting on their horses, and we go on to have at some point where Turoid or Turquoise or Turquil goes on and shares his emeralds with the guys, and like, yeah, you got hosed. So here's where our group goes on and starts making it through this swamp, is where they're forced to travel. So within this swamp, all of a sudden these slayers appear and they're forced to face off against them. We see here that Krell comes in, or Rel comes in and puts his spear to a good number of them, and Ergo is to mention that he's been saved by Rel not once but twice at this point. So here's where finally, after like Caldwin and the whole group is facing off against these slayers, and the numbers are actually pretty good. They even at one point go on and they put a net on one of the slayers, and they figured a way to have one of the robbers like slice into him. So at this point, since Rel keeps following them anyways, and Ergo and Titch meet up with Rel and ask him what his name is, and and uh, eventually Caldwin meets up with Rel himself. Is like, hey, like if anything, we might as well, as all men, kind of work together. And they kind of shake hands, and so the group starts to make their way through the swamp. And as they start to further go into the swamp, uh, they talk about what it is that they would wish. Because Ergo is going on and talking to Titch, and Titch wishes that he had a puppy. And Rel wishes for ignorance. So, if anything, I think Ergo wishes, I think, for like food or pie or something like that. But anyways, so like I think it was like a pie as big as a house at some point is something that he used to go on and go on and on about. Uh, but anyways, so here's where Alyssa is making her way through the dark or black fortress, and as she makes her way through this dark fortress, she finds this gown and this crown, and as she makes her way through this hallway, the hallway from behind her closes from behind her, and she's met by the beast. And the beast is trying to tell Alyssa, it's like, well, hey, yeah, I know how I look, but if anything, don't be afraid of me. So now we cut back to the guys that are making their way through this swamp, and they find that they're in quicksand. And as slowly but surely, like we start to see people that are falling into this quicksand one by one, the guys get to a point to where they can not be no longer in the quicksand, that there is a part where they are to be safe. And so when they get to that point, whoever is not to be in the quicksand, they start to go on and they start to latch arms. They start to hook arms with one another, and they start to find whoever is in the quicksand, and they start pulling them out. So everybody gets together, everybody latches arms, and everybody starts to try to keep pulling people out. It gets to the point to where there is to be one last guy who goes by the name Menno, that he has his this sack with him, and he's like holding on to this like this bit of like, it looks like branches on a tree, but oddly they're in this quicksand. So Coswin is to be the leader of this whole chain of people hooked together. So Caldwin is calling out for Menno, hoping that he can grab onto his hand, and he does, but then eventually the guy starts to sink, and all that Caldwin can now get to is just this guy's sack, and then realize that they just need to be pulled back because it's too late. The guy's dead. So now we have the seer. The seer is safe, and all of a sudden there's to be a person that looks identical to the seer that appears from behind him, because this is the beast who is to have become this changeling-like entity that can come at any time and just start uh, looking like whoever, and kill people at will. So the seer that is to be the beast is to take its nails and grow them out fairly long, and is to kill the seer, and is to then hide him away within the quicksand. So now, as the group has all gotten back together, they're now asking how far away is the temple of which that they're trying to get to. So Rel is to go on and say that he's going to stay in the swamp while the rest of the group goes on to to continue on their journey to this temple. So Colwyn is to see the seer, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to take him on, and I'm going to guide him." And then Turquill is like, "No, I'll go on and I'll guide him." So the seer is guiding the group, and while that's going on, we have Oswind that is tying his shoe, and here is where Rel goes on and finds the seer within the quicksand, as all of a sudden the seer is uh he's rising from the quicksand, oddly, because for some reason, I guess the quicksand, yeah, there's sometimes where stuff does sink, but then I guess there's also the seer that is going on and is bubbling back up. I guess maybe because his body floats. I don't know why that is. But Rel has spotted the seer, so he's running to the rest of the group and going on and getting his spear out because he's going to kill the seer. So the seer goes on and asks the group, whoever is to want to seek the knowledge of which that I have, must lead me and him alone. So Caldwin takes the seer and goes off alone, and here's where Rel is running into this through the swamp, trying to save Caldwin before it's too late. So, which he gets to him in the nick of time. So, the Beast Seeker, I guess is what I could call him. The Beast Seeker is to say, here is the knowledge of which you seek, and the Seeker goes on to stretch out his nails and is going to go on and is soon going to kill Caldwin. And then all of a sudden, we then have Rel that puts a spear into the Seeker. Caldwin turns and he puts a blade also, or a dagger, into the seer, or the Seeker. The seer? Yeah. And all of a sudden, the then seer's body starts to decay and then falls over and is to turn into nothingness. It's to just kind of collapse upon itself. So here's where Ynir mentions about how the beast has these ways of having these changelings that turn into anybody, and so they go on and they ask Rel how exactly he figured out that the seer was fake. And he's like, well, yeah, I saw his body pop up in the quicksand. So I was like, well, it's a good thing that you stayed back because kind of saved us there. So Titch, realizing that his only family that was left is now dead, and so Caldwin is telling Titch, it's like, well, we're your family now. So Caldwin is to go on and ask Ynir, is there any way for us to figure out where the Black Fortress is now that the seer is dead? And Ynir is like, well, yeah, there is a possibility. I have to go on and I have to speak with the Widow of the Web. And the Widow of the Web comes to find out is to have a connection with Ynir because they have, I don't know if I said this already, they have had a son together, and the widow of the web had gone on to kill her own son. I guess uh out of maybe because out of spite because of Ynir and the widow's relationship going poorly. Like, I don't know, that was never exactly talked about in this film. But for some odd reason, because of the sourness of their relationship, the widow had took it out on their own son and killed him. And Ynir goes on and quickly forgives the widow of that happening, which I can probably understand that because Ynir could go on and just tell the widow, it's like, well, yeah, there's bigger things going on um, right now that, like, something like that just has to be just kind of like, yeah, it happened, but we really have to go on and focus on saving the world right now. Um, and her helping him is to be the way about going about that. So if anything for the robbers, like, yeah, like, I'm definitely not going to go on through every little name of every little everybody, just because it'll take too long. But luckily I have to go on and kind of remember certain names and certain things. But anyways, so Ynir goes on to say that uh, the widow of Webs is to go on and have great power, but also anybody that probably comes to her will probably be killed. So if anything, Ynir has to go alone because he's the only one that knows her true name and is familiar with her. And when Ynir goes there, he will be given a chance to be able to get to her where everyone else probably would not have. So Ynir is going to go and he's going to go alone. So while Ynir is going off alone and the rest of the group is going on and they're starting to travel, at some point, uh, Ergo is to turn into a puppy, and Titch is to start taking care of the puppy, and Caldwin is to ask Twitch, it's like, well, hey, where did Ergo go? And Twitch is like, well, he'll be back in only a matter of time. So I guess Caldwin is like, oh, he became the puppy. Oh, okay. So so here is the point where we actually get some backstory for Kegan, the guy who's Liam Neeson. We find out that Kegan is to have a good number of wives, and so Turquin is asking Kegan, like, hey, do you have any wives that is kind of nearby this area? Because if anything, maybe we can get them to cook for us and and this and that. And and Kagan is trying to figure it out, and he realizes that there is to be Marith nearby, and they could probably cook them things. So so there's a woman that I think I need to know the name of pretty soon here, so I need to quickly look that up. So Vela. So Urine is to make his way uh to get to the widow of the web, and I liked how the two of them, both Caldwin uh and Ynir, they talk about fate and like how Ynir like looks at the glaive and before he goes. So back to the whole situation where they're cooking all this food. So Meredith is going on and telling the group that it's like, well, hey, plenty of food around, like, and uh, and Meredith goes on and or Meredith goes on and uh finds Kagan and jumps on him and starts kissing him. And Kagan goes on and mentions about how faithful he is when we also have to realize that he has like 7 or 8 wives. Um, so a woman named Villa is to make her way to Colwyn and is to offer him food. And Colwyn is like, no, I've eaten. And she's like, no, like I've made this specifically for you. And so Colwyn's like, okay, I'll take it. I'll eat it. Fine. Thank you. So Kagan, I think, does go on and asks Marith who that woman is. And Kagan, or Marith, is to just mention, oh, it's just somebody I met in town. We'll come to find out that Vela is to actually be another changeling person that ends up getting put into this group. Uh, because there's going to be a thing that comes up here soon. So so we have Lissa that is going on and speaking with the Beast. And there is a point here where the Beast is telling Alyssa that more than likely that she should not probably trust Colwyn. That maybe he will go on and not truly love her. That if anything, when he probably goes on and finds another woman, maybe he'll find her attractive, or maybe he'll go on and like her. And Alyssa doesn't think that any of this is true. Also, here's where uh, the Beast turns into Caldwyn to say it's like, well, hey, I can take any form you wish. Uh, if this is who you really love, then I can go on and I can marry you as Colwyn. So now we cut back to Colwyn, who's with this woman. This woman is saying how she's offering him comfort, and Colwyn does not want it. And then Bella turns her eyes black and starts putting her nails long and starts attacking Colwyn. Colwyn whips out his dagger and Vela is to mention how close she was to killing him. Also, oddly, uh, so the Beast is to is to be is to let me pause here for a second. So the Beast is threatening that if Alyssa does not go on and consent to be his wife, because maybe his power isn't good enough for her, and that also Caldwin so easily almost being killed by a changeling isn't good enough for Lissa to realize that the beast is to be a much more powerful entity. Then the beast goes on and is to threaten Lissa that she could save her planet if only she would consent to marriage, to be his wife. And the longer that Alyssa does not agree to be his wife, the more the planet will suffer because of her not accepting of this marriage. So Lissa goes on to leave the beast and is to be calling out, "Hurry, Caldwin, hurry!" So you can beat this beast and be able to save the day, and then we wouldn't have the worry of this whole her needing to consent to save this planet. So now we have Ynir that has made his way to this cave, and so he finds this door, walks through it, and is to call out that he seeks the widow. The widow goes on to say that if you enter, you will die. And so Ynir is adamant about getting to the widow, so he starts climbing on the webs. We start to see in the background this thing called a crystal spider. The crystal spider starts to slowly but surely making its way closer to Ynir. We have to assume, because if anything, they're kind of two separate screens here going on with the spider and then Ynir. It's kind of confusing at some points. We don't really know how really close it is. It's at some avenues. But anyways, so as Ynir is seeing that the crystal spider is making its way to him, Ynir calls out for the widow's real name, which is Lissa. Lissa. And so the widow is asked who speaks that name, and it's to be Ynir. So the widow is to go on and pour a hourglass of sand down to say, okay, you have this long to get here, and I will let the spider go on and not get to you, but you need to get here quickly. So Ynir struggles through all the webbing, even so much so goes on and finds a skeleton that someone had, unfortunately, in the past died, to really go on and tell him, yeah, you need to hurry up or you're going to die. So Ynir goes through all of this webbing to inevitably, of course, he's going to get to the goal, right? Because he has to. I think that's the only also kind of big problem about this movie. You have to realize that these people only have these one chances, and they're going to succeed. It's inevitable that they're going to succeed. But if anything, this movie is so visually interesting that you can just be like still interested in the journey of the way that this all plays out. Plus, also, if you've kind of seen a movie more than once, it kind of gets ruined for you, anyways, but still. So, Ynir makes it into the widow's, like, it's like a golden ball, or it looks like a strange honeycomb of a house, uh, of a spear thing that this widow is in. So, Ynir meets with the widow, and the widow mentions about how uh, the name of which that was mentioned by Ynir was only to be so familiar to her when she was young, and Ynir is to remind the widow that she is to have the name uh, of Lissa, that that they both had a beautiful or that the both of them had a son together. That if anything, um, Urine ends up asking the widow where his son is, and the widow goes on to say that she had killed him when the son was born. And the way of which that she looks now is to probably be, or the way that she is to be kept in here as the widow of the web is to have been her punishment for her killing their son. So plus how old she looks. But eventually Ynir changes the way her flexion looks, and then at some point also they keep talking about how changing her vision. So at some point too also Ynir, and to us the audience, the widow also looks young. So anyways, Ynir goes on and forgives the widow of their dead son, and is to say at this point now that the big focus is to help another girl who is to be Lissa, who shares the same name as the widow. And so Ynir goes on and asks that he's trying to seek out where the Black Fortress ear is and where it will rise. The widow goes on and says that it'll be by a iron desert by tomorrow, and the widow goes on to tell Ynir, it's like, well, yeah, you had this information, but there's no way you're going to give it to anybody because no one ever leaves her alive. And Ynir is like, well, I'm going to have to. So the widow goes on and breaks the hourglass and hands Ynir this sand in his hand. So Ynir then goes on and starts to escape and reverses the way of him getting out of here. And he goes on to see the spider is getting ever closer to him. So he has a hand in sand. He has a hand of sand. He lets some of the sand kind of fall out of his hand, and starts to open up his hand a little to where the sand kind of falls out, and that stops the spider from continuing to coming at him. So after Ynir is successful to avoiding the crystal spider, he goes on to reunite with the rest of the group. And once he does go on and explain to them where exactly the Black Fortress will be, and once he gets to them, like he's trying to just shove this information out to them. He's saying like at sunrise, and they're just like, what is he talking about? What? So they run to him, and so he falls over, and so he explains where exactly the Black Fortress is going to be in the Iron Desert. And then shortly thereafter that, he falls over and then he dies, and then the sand kind of falls out of his hand. So they realize that the Iron Desert is quite a ways from where they are, like 1,000 leagues from where they are. and they're like, yeah, there's no way we can make it there in time. And Rel says that there are fire mares that are basically just horses that can ride really fast, that their feet burst into flame for how fast they are, that can get them to where they need to go within a day. So we now have the Black Fortress that shifts from its snowy environment to then the the other iron desert like environment. So here's where we take a very long time to wrangle these fire mages or these fire horses. So they gather up these horses and everybody's trying to like jump on the horses. We have guys that are trying to get ropes and rope up the horses. And this is taking a very long time, this whole scene here. And I get it, it's kind of real, but also I'm sure they were like, yeah, let's just keep using this footage. Because yeah, this was a very challenging scene to do. So I'm sure that's why they use it. So Rel goes on to mention about how this one gray horse is to be the leader of the pack. So Colwyn is to, of course, take the gray horse. So as everybody starts to get on their own horse, and they start getting their saddles and everything like that. So here's where Rel goes on to mention the group that he has to stay back because this is his time to die. So Ergo meets with Rel and they start talking, and Rel's like, well, yeah, I have to stay here, my friend. And Ergo's like, oh, is it your time to die? And he's like, well, yeah. It's like, yeah, we just didn't have enough time together now, did we? Yeah, Ergo, who is to go on and be so afraid of Rel, is to, by the end of this, like, they really did befriend one another. And it's like, well, yeah, we really didn't have enough time to be friends and really, like, because, yeah, like, for their relationship, yeah, like, it was so short. Um, but anyways, let's cut through this here. So, the guys get on their horse and they start riding off. And there's a long thing here where we're just seeing them all ride off, and the hooves or the feet of the horses are starting to burst into flame for how fast they're moving. And we're seeing them cut through so much part of land. And so by the end of this, they do finally get to the Black Fortress. And they realize that they need to get to it fairly quickly because the longer that they wait to get into the Black Fortress, that it'll disappear because they have until sunrise to get to the Black Fortress, and then it'll change to be somewhere else. So the guys are trying to climb up the Black Fortress, and we start to see that slayers are popping open in these holes and starting to blast and starting to attack some of the robbers. So we see Rel that is riding on his horse making his way to the Black Fortress because he's going to be the one that saves the day here. Because the guys have a real problem trying to figure out how to get into the Black Fortress, and also they're getting blasted very heavily. So Rel comes in, and he is to be the guy that's like taking all the blasts, to where they're like, hey, well, let's follow that guy. And as they follow him, Rel ends up keeping this doorway open because as soon as the guys start to get in to the Black Fortress, all these doors start closing in, and so Rel is now keeping this door open while all the robbers and all the Caldwin and everybody is going on and trying to squeak through the door, as Rel is trying to keep it open because it's starting to close in on him. So Turquell is even trying to go on and using his axe to try to keep the door open, but Rel is going on and telling the group, it's like, well, hey, yeah, I know this was my time. Like, I knew I was going to die here. And so he's accepting of it. And there's no way to save him at that point. The door is going to squeeze the life out of him and kill him. So that's how Rel dies, sadly enough. So, shortly thereafter that, the group starts to make their way through the Black Fortress, and they are met by Slayers. They end up getting blasted, and they dodge some of the blasts here, and here's where the Black Fortress changes, because it's sunrise now, to another location. So the guys get past the Slayers and they make their way onto this bridge, and so they run from one side of the bridge to the other. They're trying to figure out within this Black Fortress where to go, and so at some point one of the Slayers ends up blasting, and Kegan ends up getting blasted, and he goes down. And so Turquell is having this moment with Kegan, and there's that one point where Kegan is like, tell Marith I loved her, and like Turquell is kind of having his own line, and like it just kind of seems like it's a weird kind of like Turquell is kind of already like, oh well, like I guess we're just gonna move on here, and then Kegan has his one last line. I thought that was kind of funny. Anyways, so the group at one point goes through this hallway, and the hallway, it seems, is to break underneath them. Ergo and Titch fall in this hole. Calwyn tries to take this rope and tries to get to them, but it seems that once this floor starts to re-slide back together, Calvin realizes that he's just gonna have to jump back to where they originally were, and the two of them are just gonna be separated. Because yeah, like there is no way that he could have gone on and gotten them out in time. So he just decided to just like, okay, I'll just go on and I'll just be with the rest of the group. So Titch and Ergo are to realize that there's Slayers around them, and they're probably thinking, yeah, we're effed. We're gonna die here. So Ergo realizes that he's looking through his bit of spells, and he turns into a tiger, and he starts facing off against these Slayers. So we now have Caldwin. Caldwin goes on to find this dome-like housing environment, which we come to find is to be Lissa's cell. And so Colwyn tells Turquil here that he must do this alone. So, if anything, they're like, well, I don't think there's any way to actually be able to get into this dome thing. Like, I don't get what you're gonna try to do here. And Colwyn is like, well, there's only one way. He whips out the glaive and he's like, yeah, this is a special time I could use this weapon. And I'm like, please don't tell me that this is gonna be the only time we're gonna use this glaive thing, and then we're never gonna use it again. Luckily, the glaive was at least used to face off against the beast, but still, I'm like, you took all that time to use the glaive on a dome to open it up to free your woman, and then you just use it for the beast, and then after that, it's like, well, let's just use our fire powers because that's all we can do. Yeah, like, I wish they could have used that a lot more. So, we have Oswin and Turquil and another one of the other robbers who eventually is to find that there's a dagger of one of his on the ground, and he tries to go for it, and Turquil tells him like, "Hey, don't go for that, because if anything, this room is to have all these wooden spikes that are kind of coming from the sides, and it may be triggered by movement or it may be triggered by any number of things." So they go into this room, and so what inevitably ends up happening here is that Oswin and Turquil, God, these names are so goofy. They see Bardolph, and he gets stabbed in the chest, and he dies. Oswin, it seems, also gets stabbed in the chest, and honestly, like Turquil, he gets stabbed all over the place. Like, he's getting like stabbed everywhere. And so at this point, there's a natural assumption that all these people are going to die in this room. But come to find out, once Caldwin does defeat the beast, the spikes from this room pull out of these men, and it seems that Turquil and Oswin are somehow fine. That they're not dead. I'm sorry, these people took a decent stab to the chest, but whatever, I guess. They somehow dodged death somehow. Anyways, so Colwyn meets up with Lissa, and so now the two of them are now together. So Colwyn is to want to try and attack the beast now and go after him, now that he has his woman. And so Lissa is to tell Colwyn to not go and face off against the beast in this exact area of the Dark Fortress. Because if anything, the beast would be too strong there. If anything, it's better to attack him in a certain place of the Black Fortress, and have him go much more in the center of the Dark Fortress. So Colwyn takes the glaive out and is to chuck the glaive and have all these rocks come down. And so after that, that springs the beast to then chase after them. And so Lissa and Caldwin leave the dome prison, and the beast is breaking through both where he was, and then uh, breaking through that dome that was housing Lissa. So now there is a fight between both Beast and Caldwin here. The Beast goes on and is to have blast being coming from out of his mouth to attack Caldwin, and Caldwin is to throw his glaive to try and attack this beast. And sometimes the blast from the beast is to kind of counteract the glaive. And so there's sometimes where Caldwin has to kind of retract the blade by kind of using the, like, for Star Wars people, he's kind of using the Force to kind of regain it, because he has the power to somehow, like, he has the ability to, like, throw this thing and then call for it, like he's Thor, and he has Mjolnir, where like it kind of goes back and kind of, it's like a boomerang. It comes back to him. So we'll go with that. It's a boomerang. It comes back to him. So, but he holds his hand out to have it to be called. So yeah, it's strange. So at some point after the glaive, it seems to eventually hit its mark and take down the beast. We ultimately want, of course, Callan here to make sure that the beast is dead, but also Colin doesn't want to go on and give up his best weapon, which is the glaive. He doesn't want to go on and just kind of give that away. So Colwyn is like calling out for the glaive, and it's not coming back to him. So he's like, well, hey, I'm going to come back for that thing. So Colwyn makes his way back to where the glaive is so he can get closer to it. And that's, of course, when we see that the beast is still alive. So Lissa and Colwyn are realizing, like, wait a minute. Like, we can't get the glaive now. It's stuck within the beast. How are we going to go on? How are we going to be able to defeat this thing? And so Lissa is telling Colwyn, wait a minute. Like, don't you realize the glaive wasn't the only weapon you had? If anything, remember when we were wed, how we also talked about the fire, the water and the fire, and Colwyn is like, oh yeah. So Colwyn goes on to use his fire that he takes from his wife, and he then goes on to start blasting away at the beast, and this is what definitively takes him down. That's what goes on and takes him down and starts destroying the Dark Fortress with good measure, because flame and fire and what have you. So as we start to see that the beast is getting killed and the Dark Fortress is starting to fall right after the beast does, all of a sudden we see Oswin and Turquil, because they still have these wooden spikes coming and stabbing them. Eventually, here's where all of that just starts to retract, and then they can now escape from the room which they are in, and rejoin Colwyn and Lissa and get the heck out of there, just in the nick of time, because yeah, everything is starting to break down here. So Oswin goes on and finds this trail of blood that bizarrely he immediately knows that it's Ergo's blood, and so they follow it. They follow it to meet up with Tish and Ergo, And so they grab Ergo and they get the heck out of there. So how they escape is Colwyn is to see that there is no exit, so he uses his flame element to create a hole for them to be able to get out of there. So they get out there, they get out of there, they start climbing on these rocks, and they eventually look at the destruction as this thing is kind of going on and kind of in a very strange way, kind of like condensing inside of it. And so So by the end of the piece, the very last bit of business is that Colwyn turns to Turquil and is to realize that he still has this shackle on one of his hands. And so Colwyn is to go on and give this guy a key to free himself. And he was like, "Well, you know what? I was kind of tempted to just kind of keep this as a memento for this gesture." And so Calwyn says like, "Well, hey, if anything, you can keep the key anyways." And Turkle's like, "Well, wait a minute. Like, why are you having me keep the key? If anybody who actually keeps these keys is either the king or the Lord Marshal," basically saying that Calwyn trusts this guy so much. It's like, "Well, hey, I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna make you a Lord Marshal, and you're gonna go on and be a part of my kingdom, and so on and so forth." So after that is to be basically all said and done. Shortly thereafter that, uh, we basically have the narrator that goes on to mention about how, like, yeah, Calwyn and Lissa go on and have a son, and that son will go on and rule the galaxy as they've gone on to rule the Krull planet. And shortly thereafter that, we have credits, and that's that. So with that said, yeah, I really did enjoy this piece, but I don't know, I don't know if I really reviewed it that well. I kind of really rushed through it because I don't know if there's really true interest there. I don't know if people are gonna really like this piece. Plus, also, I just wanted to get like, I really did enjoy this movie, but I also kind of just wanted to like, I knew there was a lot of details to this movie. I knew there was a lot of things that I just kind of really wanted to rush through uh, because I knew that this was going to be one of those that was probably going to take a very long time. But actually, 2 hours is actually pretty good, considering all the details that are to go on in this movie. And I knew I was going to really have a hard time tripping on some of the names, like the guy who had gone on to be the guy who had played Hagrid, the guy that was like Murr or whatever the one robber is. I didn't mention how he died, where while there was kind of them making their way into the Black Fortress, he goes on and he gets blasted and he gets killed, and he eventually goes on to mention about how this adventure was worth it for him to go on and to have done this, but eventually, yeah, he does die. Um, but other than that, I think I got a good chunk of what happens in this film. There are times where I really just wanted to just be like, I don't know what to really say here. So I just kind of like, hence the oftentimes of pausing or whatever, because I was just kind of very much like, I don't know what exactly I want to say. And that is happening quite often in a lot of reviews. Where there's a lot of times where I'd go on and I would just have to just really just be kind of taking pauses to just kind of really think of what I have to say. Um, in a lot of reviews where I'm just like, I don't know what to say here. But yeah, but hence the pausing in this video this time around, because I'm just like, I just want to try and figure out where this movie is going. Because some of these movies are getting very difficult to get them all out. Hence why I feel that sometimes I've kind of bitten off more than I have to chew, and just be like, okay, uh, hopefully this will be an easy project. Hopefully this will be more challenging, and whatever. But anyways, so at least this will be done. At least this will be a thing that I've reviewed. This will be cool. Um, I honestly, like, number wise for this one, I'm fine if this goes either way. If it goes donut holes, I'm like, you know what, like, I've had other reviews lately that have just been going really well. So if this does nothing, I can be fine with that. Like, at least I'd gone on to actually see a movie that I haven't seen before, and so I'm happy with that. Because there's so many things that I'm having to just rewatch, and that just kind of gets boring to me. It's like, well, yeah, I definitely know how to talk my way through this film because I've seen it more than once, or I've seen it so many times and whatever. Like, it's very familiar to me. Whereas stuff like this is like brand new, so I'm just like, oh yeah, this is more of a challenge, and also uh, this is to be a lot more fun for me than going through like, well, I know how this is gonna be put together. Uh, but anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. Yeah, there's not gonna be a 20 to 30 minute rant of me just talking about uh, where my life is, or how frustrated I am, or any of that stuff. Uh, because really, right now, I'm just like, I just want to get this done. If anything, I'm like, I am at a good place right now. I feel good. Uh, like, I'm so happy that I'm figuring out these things, these projects that are actually doing well, and people are subscribing to the channel. Like, I'm seeing the tick of numbers, and I'm just like, like, this is a good time right now. Like, yeah, not everything is going to be successful. I did 2 videos in one day, and no one really cared about neither of them. But I'm like, I don't care. I have other projects that are doing well, or continuing to still do well. So I'll take that. I'll take what I can get at this point. Um, because, oh, it's a roller coaster. YouTube is basically just consistently a roller coaster, ups and downs, and I just have to go on and take what I can get at this point. Uh, and also, I am just so, like, and this will be like a pat myself in the back kind of thing, where I'm like, man, I'm just so proud. Time to go on and just find all these projects, and I just feel so good that I was able to find these things and be able to have what seems to be success with them. So I hope that that can keep going. Um, there's a lot of times where I uh, I thought that uh, like, I was going to waste my time going into like movie sequels, but actually, surprisingly, it seems like an actual benefit. So, like, because I would just go on and I would just do the first movie of some movie franchise, and it would not go well. But I'm like, what if it's YouTube just not giving me a thing to tell me that something is popular, but when I know all good and well that something probably is? Like, like Terminator. Like I could tell that like the first one didn't do nothing. So what if I never did anything after that? No, I went into just like, wait, I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna review Judgment Day. I don't care. Like I'll just go on, I'll review it anyways. Then I did it, and it's one of like the top like 5 whatever videos of the channel. So yeah, so me I'll go on and I'll do action sequels, regardless of how actually well they turn out, because it seems that people will actually be interested in that. So maybe I'll go and I'll do those. I didn't think it'd be worth shit, but maybe I'm wrong. So uh, this is great. I'm happy. I'm actually fully recovered, seemingly from my hip issue. I went on and I just did yesterday a whole entire workout, so I'm feeling uh, really good about that. Um, there might be a little bit of like still kind of feeling that my hip isn't like 100%. There's still that kind of lingering like kind of feeling of just kind of like I'm not sure if it is 100. If anything, I feel a little bit of tinge here and there where it's just like but like I've done so much cardio lately, I've done so many things that it's like okay, if it still was in pain, I would go on and I would definitely feel it. So I need to take risks at this point. I have to kind of test things and just kind of test the waters and see where this goes. So that's gonna be great. I'm hoping for the best. So with that said, goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.